Elon Musk's son shocks Millionaire by revelando secretos Donald Trump hizo. Rain hammered the streets of San Francisco like a relentless drumbeat. Neon signs flickered through the gray mist, casting strange shadows on David Musk's face. The city was alive, a chaotic pulse of tech giants, dreamers, and secret smugglers. Yet there he was, alone in a cramped apartment, staring at his laptop, heart pounding like thunder. David had always been under the mountain shadow of his padre, Elon Musk. Everywhere he turnaba el mundo expectaba stin, grandeza, mediante su sangre. But today, slipping around some father's old encrypted files, something felt different. A colega tendida nombrada legado, bajo el portal. His fingers trembled, then froze. Into a document. Not just any file. It mapped a web of lies, of dangerous alliances and conspiracies. Donald Trump, a name that sparked fierce debates everywhere, was tangled deep in it. The lines connected shadowy elites, corporate puppeteers, and whispers of betrayals that could ignite firestorms. David's chest tightened, his world blurred. These weren't just stories or tabloid fantasies. The proof was raw, real, a secret that could shatter power and trust alike. But why was it hidden? Why was his father guarding this? A sudden knock jolted him. The sound echoed, sharp but cautious. Zoe stepped into the dim light. Her eyes were sharp, guarded, a hacker molded by broken pasts and second chances. She moved like a shadow, quick and silent. "I heard you might need help," she said, voice low, almost a breath. David nodded, grateful. Together, they dove deeper, every file, every encrypted note, pulling them into danger's grip. Outside, rain blurred the city's neon glow, but inside, the tension sparked like live wires. Their investigation wasn't just a hunt for truth. It was a battle, with a powerful corporation lurking in the dark, watching, waiting, ready to strike. Every click brought a new threat. Every whispered conversation felt like crossing a razor's edge. David's stomach churned. Fear and thrill tangled inside him. Exposure wasn't just professional, it was personal. His life, his father's legacy, their secrets. All could burn to ashes. Yet that lump in his throat pushed him forward. But then the screen went black. Then a cryptic message flashed. "I know what you fear." The words stabbed cold through his bones. It wasn't just a threat against their mission. It was a mirror into David's soul. The dark corners he never wanted anyone to see. Zoe looked up. "This just got bigger than us," she whispered. And David knew she was right. The city outside roared on, bright, restless, full of promise. Yet behind this sparkling facade lay hidden dangers that could rip everything apart. Now, David stood on a razor's edge, torn between carrying his father's legacy or forging his own path into the unknown. Could he face the darkness, not just around him, but inside himself? The question sliced through the silence, and the rain kept falling, relentless and cold. What had he really stumbled into? And how far was he willing to go before everything shattered? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. David sat frozen, heart racing, as the cryptic words danced on the darkened screen. I know what you fear. Zoe's eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of the laptop, confusion etched on her face. The atmosphere thickened, the air brimming with uncertainty. What do you think it means? She whispered, tension vibrating in her voice. I don't know. David's fingers trembled, unsure if he should respond, unsure of anything anymore. He felt exposed like a fish trapped in a net, his past closing in, haunting him. Then suddenly, a loud crash shattered the night. Glass shattered. The screen flickered again, pulsing ominously. It was the front window, smashed. Rain poured in, soaking the worn carpet beneath them. Panic surged. David's instincts kicked in. "Get down!" he shouted. "Get down!" Pushing Zoe behind the couch, just as footsteps thundered outside. The room flooded with chaotic clamor as shadows lurked in the downpour. The reality hit him like a freight train. Someone was after them. Someone wanted this information. The stakes shot up, urgency crackling in the air. Smaller flashes illuminated the room with each lightning strike outside, revealing David's frantic eyes darting around for any weapon or escape. But there was nothing but the truth hidden in those files. His father's legacy teetered on a razor's edge. Then there was a sound, a voice cutting through the storm. "David, we know you're in there!" It was a low, menacing growl, echoing through the pouring rain. David recognized it instantly. One of his father's old associates, known for brutality, known for silence. Zoe's breath hitched beside him. ... We have to move! Now! Where? David's mind raced. His world had flipped in an instant. All their searching reduced to nothing but a desperate fight for survival. The path blurred ahead. Silence fell outside, smothering the frantic rain. An eerie pause before chaos reigned again. "David, open the door!" The voice was punctuated with impatience and a hint of menace that sent chills through his spine. Before he could grasp the fear, a hand slammed against the door. It rattled, sending echoes through his bones. The shadows outside shifted, alive and waiting. "Open it, or we're coming in." Zoe's expression sharpened. "I can hack into the emergency exit. There's a back way out of this place." "Do it!" David barked, adrenaline surging. They didn't have time for questions, not anymore. As Zoe frantically typed, the door lurched again. "We know you're hiding something. You have no idea the danger you're in." A blinding flash of realization struck David. It wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't only his father's legacy or the secrets of Trump tangled in conspiracy. The danger reached far beyond them. With a sudden crash, the door buckled under pressure. "David, no!" Zoe cried. The last string of hesitation snapped as David plunged toward the back window, following Zoe's hurried commands. But there was a shadow in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. A figure stepped through the broken door, holding a look that stopped time. His own father, Elon Musk. "David." Elon's voice was low, but edged with something David had never heard before. Concern? Fear? We need to talk. Now. The world turned upside down. The pulse of desperation twisted into disbelief. David felt the walls close in. The truth just became more complex, shattering everything he thought he knew. "Why are you here?" David choked, fighting against a tide of confusion. "I never meant for you to find out." But the thunderclap outside drowned out the rest, sealing their fates in chaos. Questions swirled, each one sharper, each one deeper. What lay beneath? What secrets had his father hidden? And what did it mean for David's own future? And just like that, the storm raged on, dark and unforgiving. Where would this lead them now? David stood frozen, the weight of that cryptic message pressing against his chest. Zoe leaned closer, her fingers dancing over the keyboard, but fear glimmered in her eyes. They were caught in something bigger than both of them, and David could feel it tightening around him like a noose. Then, the screen flickered back to life, revealing a new folder. Reveal. His heart raced as he clicked on it, breath hitching in his throat. Inside, a video file awaited. Anxiety gnawed at him. He felt both drawn in and repulsed. Zoe's eyes were glued to the screen, her breath shallow, as David hit play. The video began, and it felt like time stood still. A grainy image filled the screen. A younger version of his father sat across from a familiar figure. Donald Trump. They were in a dimly lit room, deep in conversation. The audio was choppy, but David could hear snippets that made his blood run cold. Sin mucho. Control la media. Silence the dissent. Trump's voice echoed, layered with menace. David glanced at Zoe, her face pale, shock hanging heavily in the air. Their worst fears manifesting into undeniable truth. "Is this?" she whispered, barely able to form the words. "Yes," he managed, the reality settling over them like a dense fog. It wasn't just a connection. It was a conspiracy, a thread weaving through their lives. But then the video cut to black abruptly, replaced by a chilling message. "Your turn will come." David's pulse pounded. The air felt electric, thick with danger. Suddenly, the window shattered, glass raining down like deadly confetti. David turned just in time to see a dark figure slip away into the shadows. Zoe shrieked, diving for cover as chaos erupted around them. "Get down!" David shouted, pushing her away from the desk. Reality cracked open beneath him. He had stumbled into a nightmare, and now they were targets. Zoe scrambled beside him, eyes wide with fear. "We need to leave, now!" As they crouched behind the remnants of furniture, David glanced at his laptop. Could it hold the evidence to safeguard them? The truth felt heavy on his shoulders, but it was a burden he knew they had to bear. The pounding footfalls echoed outside, punctuated by distant sirens wailing, an urgency that mirrored the thundering in his chest. "David!" "They know!" Zoe's voice quivered, urgency transforming into terror. "If they know what we found!" In that moment, the door burst open. A figure loomed, silhouetted against the harsh light of the hall. "Get the files!" a voice barked, undeniably familiar. It was not just an enemy, but a face he knew too well. "Dad!" David gasped, the shock hitting him like a cold wave. Elon Musk stepped forward, eyes wild with something between fear and fury. What have you done? Reality twisted like a dagger buried deep. The man he admired, who was supposed to protect him, revealed a truth David never expected. They were in this together, yet utterly apart. "Why didn't you tell me?" David cried, a new anger bubbling. "Because I was trying to keep you safe," Elon shouted back, panic boiling beneath control. But the facade cracked, and the shadows encroaching felt darker than before. Everything he thought he understood about his father, about the files, about himself, shattered. The stakes had exploded, secrets intertwined, friendships hung by threads, and David could not tell how deep the deception ran. As his heart raced, adrenaline coursed, he realized one undeniable truth. There was no returning to innocence. These weren't just hidden files. They were the threads of a power struggle that ran deeper than he could ever have imagined. And as he looked at his father, the question burned within him like the climax of a storm. Could he trust the man who had hidden this truth? Or was everything just a game played with lives hanging in the balance? The rain pounded outside, a relentless reminder of the chaos that waited just beyond the door. David had to decide, and the answers loomed like dark clouds, but they were still shrouded in mystery. David stood frozen, the weight of that cryptic message pressing against his chest. Zoe leaned closer, her fingers dancing over the keyboard, but fear glimmered in her eyes. They were caught in something bigger than both of them, and David could feel it tightening around him like a noose. Then the screen flickered back to life, revealing a new folder. Reveal. His heart raced as he clicked on it, breath hitching in his throat. Inside, a video file awaited. Anxiety gnawed at him. H. The video began, and it felt like time stood still. A grainy image filled the screen. A younger version of his father sat across from a familiar figure, Donald Trump. They were in a dimly lit room, deep in conversation. The audio was choppy, but David could hear snippets that made his blood run cold. "See? The plan. Control the media. Silence the dissent." Trump's voice echoed, layered with menace. David glanced at Zoe, her face pale, shock hanging heavily in the air. Their worst fears manifesting into undeniable truth. "Is this?" she whispered, barely able to form the words. "Yes," he managed, the reality settling over them like a dense fog. It wasn't just a connection. It was a conspiracy, a thread weaving through their lives. But then the video cut to black abruptly, replaced by a chilling message, "Your turn will come." David's pulse pounded. The air felt electric, thick with danger. Suddenly, the window shattered, glass raining down like deadly confetti. David turned just in time to see a dark figure slip away into the shadows. Zoe shrieked, diving for cover as chaos erupted around them. "Get down!" David shouted, pushing her away from the desk. Reality cracked open beneath him. He had stumbled into a nightmare, and now they were targets. Zoe scrambled beside him, eyes wide with fear. "We need to leave, now!" As they crouched behind the remnants of furniture, David glanced at his laptop. Could it hold the evidence to safeguard them? The truth felt heavy on his shoulders, but it was a burden he knew they had to bear. The pounding footfalls echoed outside, punctuated by distant sirens wailing, an urgency that mirrored the thundering in his chest. "David, they know!" Zoe's voice quivered, urgency transforming into terror. "If they know what we found!" In that moment, the door burst open. A figure loomed, silhouetted against the harsh light of the hall. "Get the files!" a voice barked, undeniably familiar. It was not just an enemy, but a face he knew too well. "Dad!" David gasped, the shock hitting him like a cold wave. Elon Musk stepped forward, eyes wild with something between fear and fury. "What have you done?" Reality twisted like a dagger buried deep. The man he admired, who was supposed to protect him, revealed a truth David never expected. "Why didn't you tell me?" David cried, a new anger bubbling. "Because I was trying to keep you safe," Elon shouted back, panic boiling beneath control. But before they could argue, the floor beneath them jolted, a violent tremor sending them stumbling. David grabbed Zoe's arm. "What was that?" The lights flickered. A low rumble grew louder, vibrating through the walls. The ground shook again. More violently this time. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up the room. A loud crash filled the air, drowning out everything else. The ceiling above them caved in, sending dust and debris raining down. David shielded Zoe, his heart racing. When the dust settled, they looked up to see the once familiar face of Elon transformed. Where concern had creased his brow, now a cold smirk twisted his lips. "It's too late now," he said, voice dripping with malice. A wave of confusion washed over David. "What do you mean? Are you not here to help us?" With a sudden movement, Elon stepped back, revealing a hidden door that swung open. Behind it, men in dark suits emerged, their presence suffocating. "The game has changed, son," Elon said, voice now steady, chilling. "And you're on the wrong side." Zoe gasped. "What are you doing?" Elon's gaze hardened. "You were never supposed to uncover this. I could have kept you safe if you just left the past buried." Shock coursed through David. The man he trusted, his father, the genius he was supposed to admire, had been orchestrating a far darker play. "Is this all just a show?" David's voice trembled. "Who are you really?" But before Elon could respond, the ground shook again, and darkness swallowed the room as another explosion rang out. The walls trembled, and screams echoed from the outside. "What's happening?" David shouted. Zoe grabbed his hand, eyes wide with fear. The urgency of escape gripped them tight. But now, trust in his father felt like an illusion. Everything was twisting. What happened next was beyond him. Through the chaos, David spotted a flicker of light in the debris, a glimmer of truth buried beneath. But as figures moved in and shadows closed in, the question burned in his mind, sharp as a blade. What had he really stepped into? And could he ever trust the man who had brought him into this world? The darkness hung heavy, like a thick fog. David stared at the flashing words on the screen, his heart racing. Zoe was on edge, eyes darting around as if something was waiting to pounce. The message echoed in their minds. "I know what you fear." Outside, the city's pulse continued. Cars honked, and distant voices rose and fell. But inside, it was just them. Silence layered with tension. David felt the weight of reality pressing down. Whatever they were uncovering was bigger than either of them. Suddenly, a shrill noise sliced through the atmosphere, a phone ringing, sharp and insistent. David's body tensed. It was an unknown number. He picked it up, heart pounding. Zoe leaned in closer, breath held. David, a voice murmured, low and menacing. "You shouldn't have opened that file." His stomach dropped. The voice seemed to twist around him, a cold wind wrapping tight. "Who is this?" David's voice wavered, a thin thread of bravery. "Someone who knows where your father's secrets lead." The voice was smooth, casual. "You're in over your head." Before he could respond, the line went dead. David felt a jolt of electric fear surge through him. He looked at Zoe, who was no longer the calm hacker he'd known. Her face was pale, features sharpened by growing fear. "No one should have that file," she whispered, shaking slightly. "If it's what I think, it could ruin everything." "What do you mean?" he pressed, desperation bubbling in his chest. She hesitated, eyes flickering to the door. "It's not just Trump. There's a connection to us, to your family." His breath caught in his throat. "Us!" Zoe drew in a shaky breath. "I was involved before, long before I met you. I've seen those connections, and they are dark. I thought I was leaving it behind, but now it's back." The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "You were part of this? You didn't tell me?" "I was trying to protect you," she shot back, raising her voice. "This is dangerous." Just then, the lights flickered and the power surged, plunging them into darkness. Panic rose swiftly, like an icy wave. David fumbled for his phone, the screen glowing dimly. He could barely make out Zoe's silhouette, but he could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. Then a loud crash echoed from the far end of the apartment. "What was that?" Zoe nearly shouted, eyes wide with alarm. David's heart raced. "I don't know." He edged toward the sound, fear gripping him like a vice. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with dread. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed his father's old desk, papers scattered everywhere. One sheet caught his attention, partially hidden beneath the clutter. He reached for it, fingers trembling. The words pulsated on the page, each one sharper than the last. "David, you are the key. Protect the truth. They are watching." The urgency crashed over him. Just then, the front door burst open, and two shadowy figures flooded into the room. David stepped back, instinctively shielding Zoe. "Hand over the evidence," one of them growled, eyes gleaming with something dangerous. Now, fear coiled in David's stomach, twisting tighter. "Who are you?" But before they could answer, the unmistakable sound of sirens shrieked in the distance, echoing through the room like a terrible omen. David's mind spun. What could this mean? Who were these people? And how did they know to come here now? He met Zoe's gaze, panic reflected back at him. They were trapped in a storm, secrets swirling, and everything they thought they understood just exploded into chaos. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Run!" he shouted, and in that moment, everything changed. They had no clue what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Everything was about to unravel. The truth was out there, and it was far more dangerous than either of them had ever imagined. They stood on the brink of disaster, and there was no turning back. The words lingered in the air, heavy and ominous. David felt the weight of them settle in his chest. "I know what you fear." The message haunted him, an echo of a deeper truth he wasn't ready to face. Zoe's face was tight, her eyes scanning the room as if the walls themselves had ears. Before they could react, the laptop screen flickered back to life. New files appeared, one in particular pulsating like a heartbeat. It was labeled Final Revelation. His gut twisted. "Don't open it," Zoe warned, a tremor of urgency in her voice. Her expression shifted from steely determination to sheer panic. If they're watching. But curiosity clawed at him. He tapped the mouse, and before he knew it, the document unfolded. Staring back at him was a timeline, starting long before his birth. It revealed connections, alliances, past betrayals. They were all there. Names of powerful figures intertwined in a sick dance of manipulation. Then it struck him. The document wasn't just about Trump. It involved his own father. David's breath hitched. This can't be real. His eyes darted over the information. Each line was a dagger, cutting deeper. There were accusations of corrupt deals, dirty politics, and whispers of violence. And amidst it all, his father stood as a central player, orchestrating moves in the shadows. "What'd you find?" Zoe pressed, her voice a barely contained whisper. "It's about Dad. He's involved in all of this." His heart raced, veins pumping ice through his body. He's not just a tech mogul. He's part of something bigger, darker. The room felt smaller. David's mind flooded with confusion. Sleepless nights, the burden of expectations, it all made twisted sense. Just then, a sudden crash sounded outside, like thunder erupting. The power went out, plunging them into darkness. "Stay close!" Zoe shouted, her hand gripping David's arm. He could feel the fear radiating off her. But before they could think, the door burst open. A figure stood silhouetted against the streetlights. Tall, imposing. The unmistakable outline of his father. David felt shock and fear wash over him. "Dad?" Elon stepped inside, face shrouded in shadows. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low and intense. "You're in way over your head, David." "Over my head?" David stammered, anger fueling his voice. "You hid this from me. You're mixed up in this nightmare." Elon took a single step forward, and the rain pounded outside. The world surged with chaos. "I did it to protect you. There are powers at play you don't understand." Zoe stepped between them, prepared to defend David. But something about Elon had changed. His eyes flickered with dread, not just for David but for himself. Like he had secrets buried deeper than this. David felt it, the betrayal slicing through their family bond. "What did you do, Dad?" And then, in the midst of this charged moment, a loud bang erupted, like a gunshot cutting through the air. They turned, adrenaline surging, to see a figure topple in the doorway. A masked assailant with a gun, eyes narrowed and focused. "Time's up, Musk!" the figure hissed, raising the weapon. Shock pulsed through them, slamming into the core of David's being. Everything shifted in an instant. Was this an enemy of his father? A corrupt agent? Or something more personal? Zoe's arm darted back, a glint of metal shining in her palm. "Get down!" she screamed, pushing David behind her. As she moved, a chilling realization crashed into David. The truth was unraveling. Everything he thought he knew was a lie. His father's legacy was tangled in shadows, and now it all threatened to engulf them. David felt the ground beneath him shift, the reality he clung to crumbling. Were they ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead? The world held its breath. Everything teetered on the edge. What would happen next? The screen flickered again. David felt the jolt of adrenaline surge through him. This wasn't just a warning anymore. It was an invitation to chaos. "What do we do?" he whispered, more to himself than to Zoe, who stood frozen beside him. The message loomed large, its implications heavier than anything they had stumbled upon so far. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the silence. David and Zoe exchanged wide-eyed glances, the kind of look that spoke volumes of fear. Someone was coming. They had been careless, and now the storm they had awakened was at their doorstep. "Hide!" Zoe hissed, diving low and scuttling under the desk. David's heart raced. He joined her, curling into a tight ball, quietly praying the intruders wouldn't think to check here. The door creaked open. Shadows loomed in the doorway, silhouettes against the dim light that seeped in behind them. "Where are they?" a voice barked, cutting through the air like a knife. It was deep and cold, filled with authority. David felt the hair on his arms stand on end. He held his breath, aching to hear more, but the words that followed nearly shattered his resolve. "We just need the files. They must be here." Another voice grumbled, impatient and menacing. David's mind raced. Which files? The ones they were trying to uncover? Or something else? He could feel Zoe's tension beside him, her breath shallow and fast. Then, against the backdrop of that tension, a shout echoed from behind. "They're here! I saw them!" It wasn't from one of the men. It was feminine. The realization hit like ice water in his veins. Who could have betrayed them? The figures in the doorway shifted, clearly alarmed. David's heart drummed wildly. "We have to move!" Zoe whispered urgently, her eyes wide and glimmering with desperation. But as he shifted to respond, the door swung further open. "David?" A familiar voice sliced through the air. His breath caught. It was Clara, his childhood friend, and someone he never thought would be here. Why was she with them? What had she done? "Clara, wait!" he stammered, scrabbling to make sense of the situation. Her eyes were darting between him and the intruders, a conflict brewing. "Don't say anything, just..." But before he could finish, one of the shadowy figures stepped into the room, spotting them beneath the desk. Panic surged. "There they are! Move!" Adrenaline surged, and David flung himself out from under the desk, pulling Zoe with him. They needed to run, but Clara stood there, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. "Clara!" he yelled, reaching out. In that heartbeat, Clara's expression shifted. No longer the innocent child he had known, but someone hardened and sharp. "I'm sorry," was all she managed before turning, the betrayal evident in her eyes. She squared her shoulders, facing the intruders with a resolve he could barely comprehend. "Clara, you don't have to do this," David pleaded, confusion and anguish flooding his voice. But she lifted her chin defiantly. "I have to protect my future. You don't know what you're messing with." The room plunged into chaos as David's world flipped upside down. His friend, his ally, had turned. In this moment, everything changed. Secrets began to unravel. and he felt the walls closing in. How had he misjudged her? What had she become? "Get them!" a voice commanded, drowning out his thoughts. As the chaos erupted, David's mind spun. The truth felt heavy, like a weight he could hardly bear. All around him, the world blurred into noise and confusion. Could he trust anyone anymore? He grabbed Zoe's arm, pulling her into a frantic escape. But deep down, the twisted reality settled in. Clara wasn't just a bystander. She was part of the darkness they were fighting against. The betrayal sliced deeper than any knife. Where would they go from here? David's heart raced, and the storm outside seemed a distant echo of the turmoil inside. Nothing felt certain anymore, and he was left standing on the edge of the unknown. What else was he missing? What would become of him, Zoe, and the secrets they had unearthed? As they fled, questions swirled in his mind, each more haunting than the last. David and Zoe burst from the makeshift shelter of the desk, desperation fueling their escape. Clara's betrayal hung in the air like a foul stench, twisting his insides. He could hear footsteps pounding down the hallway, the urgent shouts of their pursuers echoing behind them. "Where are we going?" Zoe gasped, racing alongside him, her eyes glimmering with fear. "Out! We need to get to the elevator!" he shouted, adrenaline surging through him. But as they stumbled into the narrow hall, an icy dread took hold. Too many dark secrets lurked in every corner. Suddenly, a blinding light flooded the space, illuminating the hall at the end. It was too much, overwhelming. David shielded his eyes, squinting against the brightness, and then he saw them. Figures in black uniforms pouring in from both sides, blocking their paths. "Got them!" one of the intruders barked, authority lacing his words. The sound hit David like a punch to the gut. Panic ignited within him. "This way!" David yanked Zoe, ducking toward a service stairwell, heart racing. They dashed inside and barreled down the darkened steps, 2 steps at a time, breathless with terror. Zoe's grip tightened on his hand. "What about Clara?" she yelled. "Forget her! She made her choice!" David shot back, anger flowing hot and wild. Trust had evaporated. This was survival now, pure and simple. They burst out into a hallway on the ground level, lungs burning with each frantic breath. But as they turned the corner, they collided with something head-on. A wall of security guards, faces cold and calculating. "Stop!" one shouted. A body slammed into David, sending him crashing to the floor. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs. Zoe fell beside him, her face pale, and he grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. "They're all around us," she whispered in shock, scanning for an escape. But suddenly, through the chaos, a familiar face emerged from the darkness. Clara, flanked by guards. David's heart sank, confusion flooding him. "Clara!" he cried out, disbelief spiraling. "What are you doing?" Her eyes were steely, cold. "I had to do it, David. You have no idea how deep this goes. You think you can just walk away?" A heavy silence enveloped the room. The guards stood poised, ready to strike. David's mind raced. "You think this is about walking away? It's about exposing the truth." With a swift motion, Clara raised her hand, revealing a small device, shiny, threatening. "You don't understand. I'm protecting us. This is bigger than you and me." "What are you talking about?" And then it clicked. the magnitude of her betrayal crashing over him like a tidal wave. "You're part of this, aren't you?" She smirked, almost pitying him. "You think you were ever meant to find this out? The information you stumbled upon? That was never for you." In that moment, David felt his stomach drop. Climbing suspicion twisted into full-blown horror. "You're with them?" "Yes, more than you'll ever know." Clara's voice dripped with certainty, a chilling finality settling into her words. Suddenly, a bang echoed from the end of the hall. The guards spun, attention pulled away. Several rushed toward the source of the sound, leaving just a few behind to focus on David and Zoe. "Run!" David shouted, disbelief bleeding into urgency. Zoe gripped his hand tight, and together they darted into the shadows of the stairwell. But as they fled, David felt a sickening twist. The implications of Clara's words hung over him, a web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Everything he believed in was crumbling to dust around him. What had once felt so solid turned into a nightmare, and with every step down that darkened stairwell, the reality of what was happening closed in. Could he trust anyone now? The echo of footsteps grew fainter, but the haze of betrayal lingered. With each moment, doubt wormed its way into his mind. The world spun, and the burdens of truth weighed heavy on his shoulders. How far would Clara go to bury the truth? In this game of shadows, no one was safe. David felt the grip of fear tighten as uncertainty loomed like dark clouds above. The storm was far from over. Where would it lead them next? David and Zoe rushed down the dim stairwell, feet pounding on the cold concrete. Heartbeats raced, each thump hammering urgency into their veins. Clara's face lingered in David's mind, a betrayal sharp as ice. Would they really leave her behind? "No time to think about her," Zoe urged, panting. She gripped his hand tighter. "We need to get out!" They reached the ground floor, sliding to a halt at a door marked exit. Desperation surged. David pushed it open, breath hitching in his throat. The chill of the night air hit them like a slap. Freedom lay just beyond, but so did danger, lurking in the shadows. "Do you hear that?" Zoe whispered, tense as she scanned the space. He strained to listen. The sound was faint but growing. Voices, but not from far away. Before David could respond, a loud crash echoed from behind them, the door they had just fled, swinging wide. Under the streetlight, a figure emerged, silhouetted, imposing. David squinted, bracing for confrontation. The figure stepped into the light, a familiar face that sent chills down his spine. "Dad?" Elon Musk stood there, eyes darting like a hawk. Panic clashed with a strange calmness. "You shouldn't have left. We need to regroup." "We? What do you mean? A group of us? The stakes are higher than you think." His voice was urgent, almost frantic. Just then, another noise, louder this time. A vehicle screeching to a halt. David's stomach knotted as headlights blared from a black SUV parked haphazardly on the curb. Darkly clad men poured out, faces obscured. "Get in!" Elon shouted. "Now!" There wasn't time to argue. With adrenaline pumping, they took off toward the vehicle. David stumbled inside, Zoe close behind, the door slamming shut behind them. "Drive!" Elon commanded, his voice sharp, autoritativo. The engine ruedo to life, and they sped off, the bright city lights blurring past them. David's heart raced. What's happening? Who are they? They work for us, kind of. They're here to protect the interests. Elon answered, tension filling the air. Protect us? Is that a joke? Zoe spat, frustration boiling over. You've kept us in the dark. Elon's jaw clenched. Because I'm trying to shield you from this mess. It's bigger than either of you understand. Then tell us, David yelled, his voice rising above the roar of the street. But Elon's eyes darted to the rearview mirror. We're not safe yet. Just hold on. Without warning, the SUV screeched to a halt in a dimly lit alley. David felt his chest tighten. What are we doing here? We need to change vehicles. We can't be tracked, Elon replied, his voice strained. As they piled out, a loud bang echoed from the back of the car. David jumped, and his heart raced. What was that? Then, as if on cue, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, face half hidden, but familiar. Clara! David gasped, shock gripping him. I'm so sorry! Her voice trembled as she stepped forward. I had no choice. But before he could process, the night erupted in chaos. The ground shook beneath them. David looked at the SUV. An explosion erupted, flames licking the night sky. The heat blasted his face, the shockwave pushing them backwards. Get down! Elon shouted, urgency rising. The street lit up, debris raining down, shouts piercing the chaos. David scrambled to cover Zoe as she shrieked. In the turmoil, Clara's face twisted in confusion, guilt flashing across her features. I was forced to betray you. They threatened my life. David's world spun out of control. What are you talking about? But then he noticed something glinting at her waist, a small device. What is that? Clara hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. I thought it was to protect you. It's a tracker. They're tracing us. What have you done? David's heart raced, betrayal now deeper than before. At that moment, another explosion echoed, this time further down the street. It lit the sky, revealing a group of figures moving toward them. Faces hidden behind masks. Panic surged. Everything was unraveling. Clara was not just a friend caught in a mess. She was tied to something colossal, something dark. As the masked shadows closed in, David turned to his father. What do we do? Elon's expression hardened. I have a plan. But before he could finish, a figure broke out from the shadows, sweeping in with a chilling presence. Welcome to the game, the newcomer said, voice smooth with malice. And in that moment, it was clear. The stakes had just risen beyond belief, and no one was safe anymore. David felt the ground shift beneath him. It wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a war in shadows. And now they were all players in a game whose rules had yet to be revealed. What had they really awakened? The questions loomed, heavy and dark. David's heart hammered in his chest as the masked figure stepped closer, a menacing grin on their face. Welcome to the game, the figure said, voice smooth but dripping with malice. The reality hit him like a punch. They were neck deep in something far beyond their control. Elon stepped forward, urgency pulsing from him. They think they can control everything, but they won't take you. He was resolute, but David could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. Suddenly, Clara broke through the tension, eyes wide as she pointed behind them. They're coming! We need to move! Her voice was shaky, but it cut through the chaos. Just as the darkness of the alley deepened, David felt the weight of desperation bearing down. "Elon, what's the plan?" he shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. Elon glanced at el approaching figuras, his expresión seria. "There's a hideout a few blocks from here. It's not much, but it'll buy us some time." Without waiting for a response, he turned and rushed down the alley, the others following his lead. Confusion danced in David's mind. Was Clara really on their side? Could they trust anyone? The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, urgency crackling in the night air. David squeezed Zoe's hand, catching a glimpse of panic in her eyes. "Stay close," he urged, desperate for reassurance, desperate to shield her from the chaos unfolding. The group dashed through side streets and alleyways, heartbeats matching the rhythm of their hurried footsteps. Every turn felt like a slice of hope, yet shadows loomed ominously around them. David's stomach churned. Betrayal gnawed at him like a hungry beast. At last, they reached the hideout, a nondescript building that seemed to be just as lost as they were in the layers of danger. "In here," Elon beckoned, his voice strained. They stumbled inside, slamming the door behind them. Breathless and trembling, David leaned against the wall, hearing the echoes fade. "Is it safe?" he gasped, adrenaline still trailing through his veins. "For now," Elon said, running a hand through his hair. "But we need to figure out our next move." As the silence hung heavy, Clara stepped into view, her expression softer now, her bravado crumbling. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered, eyes glistening with vulnerability. "I was scared of what they would do to my family." David felt the knot in his heart loosen, just a fraction. "But you did betray us," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I did," she admitted, tears pooling. "But I'm here. I want to help now." Zoe stepped forward, planting her hands on her hips. "Trust isn't easy, Clara. You've got to earn it." Before Clara could reply, a loud bang resounded from outside, sending everyone spiraling back on edge. David's instincts kicked in. They weren't safe yet. "Get down!" Elon barked, shifting into protective mode. They huddled together, hearts pounding in unison. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. David could hardly breathe. The weight of what lay ahead clung to them all like a heavy mist. What else would they unearth? As the door creaked, a figure appeared, one of the men from before. The tension snapped as David's walls came tumbling down. "We're not done yet," the figure sneered. "You're in our territory now." As the crack of fear mingled with anger, David clenched his fists. He forced himself forward, ready to defend his friends, to protect their new alliance. Whatever that meant now, they were tethered by secrets, yet solidarity unexpectedly sparked in their eyes. "Enough games!" David proclaimed, surprising himself with the fierceness in his voice. "We're not backing down." The air crackled with uncertainty, and David felt a flicker of strength. They were tangled up in this mess together. They could face it head on, or they could crumble apart, and he wasn't ready to fall. Not now. With the threat still looming, he lifted his chin, hardened with newfound determination. Although darkness beckoned, flashes of hope lingered. As they prepared to face the chaos ahead, one question still lingered in the shadows. What had they truly unearthed? And what lay ahead in the treacherous journey of untold truths? And now, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories that continue to unfold. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep this story alive. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What will happen next? I want to hear it all from you. And don't wait even a second longer to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Only true fans understand the important.